Team lists are here, guys. I hope they were kind to you. I feel like there was a few ups and a few downs in there, but we're going to jump straight into them right now. So we're going to start with the Storm and the Rabbitohs. And on the Storm side of things, it wasn't too much to think about. There was that the young fella that was a chance of debuting on the wing, but George Jennings comes into that role. And I don't expect him to be there for long, and I also don't think he's a great fantasy option for your team. Remus Smith is going to be an interesting one. It looks like he's going to get that winger spot and just going to be playing in the centres for this round only. So he's someone who's at 300k and I feel like has a little bit of upside moving from the Dogs to the Storm and should score a few more tries and should probably have a few more decent base stats in the centres, but you'll expect him to move to the wing come round 2 onwards. So he's a slightly interesting option if you were thinking about having him in your side. He should get the dual position now with the wing and the centres, so makes him a little bit more interesting. Cam Munster, we know, is going to be a great option. He's locked and loaded there, and won't be getting the kicking stats that Pappenhausen will, but I think will still be a great option. Him and Munster, Munster and Hughes should be getting a few extra kick meters, especially with Brandon Smith in there. I doubt he'll be kicking much from dummy half, where you'd think Grant would, for example, a little bit more, and then Cameron Smith would have been doing a lot more kicking than these two would combined. So you should see a little uptick with those two guys and having to do a bit more of the attacking than what they may have in the past with someone like Harry Grant out. But you should see those guys score really well. All right, let's talk about the forwards now. So the interesting one being Christian Welch, especially for these first bunch of rounds with the Grant out and also Finucane out. We're going to see 3 forwards on the bench, and Chris Lewis, Kamakamika, and Eisenhuth. And let's have a little look at what the minutes might be. You'd expect Kenny Bromwich to play the majority of the game, same with Kafusi. Nelson Asofa-Solomona would be thinking around 50 minutes, so there's 30 spare there. You'd expect Bromwich to play in the 45 range like he did last year. So there's another 35, that's 65, and then you'd expect Welsh somewhere between 20 to 30 extra minutes there. So you're looking at somewhere in the 90 minutes split between 3 guys, which I think is going to be pretty fair. You'd expect Eisenhuth and Lewis to play somewhere in the mid-20s, and then Kamakamika somewhere around the 40 mark, I'd expect from those forwards there. So that puts Welsh somewhere between the 50 to 60 mark, and I think will be a good option for your side in that range, especially during that first sort of 5 to 6 weeks, which is what you'd expect from him. I don't see him as being a keeper, but I expect him to average close to 50 points, which puts him close to 10 points undervalued. So that's about all with the Storm side, with the reserves not being too interesting. Obviously, they've got a couple of injuries. So, yeah, some interesting players on the Storm side. We move to the Rabbitohs side. Latrell Mitchell, the only question is going to be for him, will he turn into a keeper? Currently priced at 37. Does he have the upside to get to a keeper? I think he has the upside to at least average close to 45. But I wouldn't expect anything crazy against the Storm in this first game. Same with a bunch of these guys through the backs. You can expect Johnston, Gagai, Graham, and Mansour to score pretty well, get a bunch of tries and a lot of attacking stats. Very similar to Walker and Reynolds, who I don't see any upside with at this stage, with them being just under keeper status in the halves. Moves to the forwards. This is where it gets a little bit interesting. We're a little bit sad that Host gets the starting spot, and I see him as someone who having just under 10 points of upside, unless he improves as a player. If he improves as a player, he should be able to score pretty well in around a 60-minute role. But I see some of these guys off the bench taking a few of those minutes. So you got Burgess and Totola, who will be playing semi-decent minutes, close to 50. You then have Host, who probably won't play the 80. You'd expect maybe a 65 to 70, and Sewer can play the 80 as well, with Cam Murray looking somewhere between 50 and 60 minutes. So it leaves a decent amount of minutes for these guys on the bench. But you got Kolomatangi and Arrow, especially, who would be looking to try and play some really big minutes. So that makes it interesting for these guys in the starting pack. Are they going to just split the minutes evenly? So to me, I don't see any of them as being really good options. Kolomatangi right now will play the role that he did at the back end of last year, whether that's off the edge or through the middle. I think he's going to score very similarly to what he averaged last year, and also what he's priced at. So a little bit annoying that he didn't get the starting gig, because a lot of people would have had him in their sides. But I think for the moment you can wait and see, and if there's an injury in the pack somewhere, he might be able to get a good chance of playing there. and then not too much in the reserves to think about or worry about any late changes. We'll move along to the Knights and the Bulldogs. Guys, if you're enjoying this content, please hit like and subscribe. Really appreciate it. Really gets this out to more people. We'll go on to the Knights. So Tex Hoy, the question is going to be, is he going to get 3 rounds, 4 rounds, or 5 rounds? If he gets 3, I don't think he's worth it. If he gets 4, he's a maybe. If he gets 5, then he's definitely worth it. He should be kicking goals as well. And with a really nice start to the Knights season, he could be someone that gets that. And if we find out anything in the next few days as to where how long Pong is going to be coming back, until he comes back, I think it's a tough one with Ponga looking like he's going to come back around 4 or 5. So I don't see him missing 5 games. I see him probably missing 4, which puts Tex in an interesting spot because he'd have to average at least 40 for him to make the right amount of money before you're going to have to move him out of your team and make a trade. So that's interesting there. Best should be a keeper come the end of the year. The other guys I wouldn't be thinking about at this stage. Kurt Mann, I think he's going to lose his spot when Green comes back, so I don't see him as being an option given how well he played last year and he's priced really high. Pierce we don't want to talk about at the moment. Won't be relevant. Clemmer's going to be thereabouts as one of the best mids. I don't see the upside with him and he's just slightly below the top tier. Brayley's a really good one. So we've got the interchange with no Randall on the bench and he's not even in the reserve. So that makes things really safe for Brayley. The only thing that might spell him would be if Watson happened to play some extra minutes and move into the hooking role. And I think that if needed, he can do that. But other than that, they've just gone for a big 4 props and edges on the bench, which is interesting for where Watson's minutes are going to be. You'd be hoping at least 45 to 50. But if he gets that in the starting lock roll at 323, you have to pick him up. Brayley, I think, is a really important player, given the fact that he's priced at 30 and could average in the low 40s with no one to take his minutes off the bench. Frizzell's going to be a keeper, but again, just slightly under those top guys in Crichton and those and of the like. But other than that, you've got Hummel, Hunt, and Sorlo on the reserves that probably the only ones that are a chance of popping in at any stage, but I wouldn't be thinking about them. On the dog side, you've got Corey Allen, who's an interesting option in the low 400s. If Bulldogs are playing pretty well, I think he'll score well. If they don't play very well, he will score at his average or below. So he's someone that I don't see having a tremendous upside, but could be decent for your side at some point in the year, especially if he has a slightly slow start and loses a bit of cash. Will Hopper-White, I think, is a solid option for your centres, and same with Nick Cottery. He'll get that dual position now, and he looked really strong in the trial. It's just he looks like he's carrying a little bit of an injury cloud, so he might be struggling a little bit in the first game or two before he gets into a rhythm. But I really like him in the centres, and same with Hopper-White, given the fact they'll both have dual position. With Dallin's not going to be interesting. Jake Gabrielle has been named. There was some talk that he might not even play, but you do have Wakeham on the reserve. So keep an eye out for someone like Averillo. I think if he starts, he's going to be a great option. If he misses the first game and him being named is really good, even if he doesn't play this week, because that shows that they really want him to be in that starting side, and I think he's going to be a really cool option on your bench, even if he's in the emergencies. But he has that centre and the half cover, so I think that's going to be really helpful for your sides going forward. And he's probably going to be in my side at this stage. Haven't completely finished it yet, but we'll jump in and have a look at that soon. Kyle Flanagan, I think, is slightly overvalued at this stage. I think you can see him averaging closer to 50. He's priced at 54 currently. Ogden's going to be an interesting one. I want to pop him up in our stats. Ogden. So price at 284. He's a really interesting option. Let's go back in and have a look at where their forwards are at. So they're missing Luke Thompson at the moment. That's something to be really thoughtful about. Hetherington looks like he'll probably have the starting spot with a Thompson when he comes back, and Ogden will pop back. And with Thompson out for the first bunch of rounds, sort of 3 to 4, if someone will let me know in the comments exactly how many. But let's have a look at his price there. And you can see what happens when he plays some bigger minutes. He did get a chance at the back end of last year, and his PPM isn't very strong. So he's got 49 minutes for 19, 45 minutes for 30, 44 for 28, 42 for 33. And that's just not good enough. At this stage. And you can see in 2019 he had a couple of games where he scored much better in terms of his PPM, but there is a chance that he scores in the low 30s and is about 10 points underpriced. But for someone that has a lower PPM naturally at 0.86, he's gonna have to get at least 40 minutes. And in their pack, is he going to be getting that when you've got Napa on the bench? Fatala Marino is going to take some minutes off someone. A Tony, and these guys are going to be taking some minutes as well. So he's definitely an interesting option. He's just someone that I'm not sure about at this stage. I think if when you've got guys like Alvaro and Farmasuli around that similar price, we'll be able to jump in and have a look at. I think they're probably slightly better options given they have a little bit more pedigree scoring really well. But he's definitely an interesting one, and I wouldn't be against you picking him up. But I guess what our issue is it's going to be over the first few rounds only, and then he's going to be moving back to the bench when a Thompson comes back. So that's all we'll say on Ogden there. Katoa comes into the starting 9 with JMK injured, and Brad Dietz gets a start off the bench, which is really cool. Hetherington, I think he'll be playing some decent minutes, but I still don't think he's a good scorer in fantasy. Adam Elliott's the interesting one. They played him on the edge for a reason in that trial, and I think he might be getting that starting spot on the edge, especially when Fatala Mariner pushes his way back into the starting spot. So it's really interesting for someone like Waddell, who does score pretty well if he's given big minutes. But I think, this is just my thoughts, but I'd say Fatala Mariner comes on for Waddell, given the fact that Elliott's played a lot of big minutes in the past. Waddell's played a bunch of games at 80 minutes and can score well there, but if he's getting 50 to 60 minutes, I don't see him as a good option given he's priced at 32. Elliott, you'd be hoping for 80 minutes, and I think he's slightly underpriced if he gets that, but if not, that's an issue. Jackson's played some lock before and has scored just okay, so I think scored very similar to what he's priced at the moment, so I don't see him as a great option. And the interchange, no one really to talk about. Hopefully Mariner drops a little bit in price, and then he might be a really interesting option to bring back into your side like we did last year. Came off the bench at the start and then helped us out, and you could bring him in at a cheaper price. So very interesting teams there. Moving on to Broncos and Eels. Our Broncos are pretty much named like we thought they would be. Tessie gets a spot in the centres, Asako in the fullback spot, and he's going to be kicking goals. Milford comes into play, and I haven't spoken about him too much just for the fact that he's been injured across this last sort of couple of weeks since we've been talking about him. But price of 32, you'd expect him to be a little bit underpriced. I'd expect him to average closer to 40, but Broncos have to improve. You can see there's not many tries, there's really no tries across the year. But he's someone that does miss a bunch of tackles and doesn't kick a lot in play. Like, he's not someone that is averaging in the 300s. Makes a decent amount of meters, but when he's missing a bunch of tackles like that, he's going to be hard for him to average in the 40s. So at 427k, I'd pick someone like Townsend over Milford at a very similar price. The interesting one here for me, and the most important one, is going to be Jake Turpin. Given the fact we have no cover for him on the interchange, Asiata is going to be playing a bit more of a ball player through the middle. Flegler's your forward. Bullimore is going to be used through more of an edge, and same with Tio. He can play on the edge or through the forwards there. So that's very interesting for Turpin. You'd expect him to be playing close to 80 minutes, which I think makes him a great option with him priced at 40 at 533k. That's awesome. And the thing is going to be, are you going to just start with the Turpin? Can you try and get him in off the bench with another top line hooker? I feel like starting with 4 hookers is going to be a decent option at this stage of the season, given the fact we've got Turpin here, and I'm going to talk about McCulloch very shortly. But in his 80-minute games, he's averaging close, just over 60, which puts him a lot underpriced. Jordan Ricky is on the edge. Matt Lodge is starting. This looks really good for those two guys, and I'd be tempted to put them in your squads. Ricky be hoping for closer to a 20-point upswing. If he's playing good minutes, sort of 60 plus, averaging closer to 40 would be a great result for someone like Jordan Ricky. And these guys on the interchange I wouldn't be thinking about too much. Corey Pakes is in number 21, but would have expected him to be named in the interchange if he was going to play. So we can keep an eye out for that one, but I think Turpin's a really good option along with those other guys. On the Eels side, my most interesting one is Tom Opercheck. should score pretty well in a decent Eel side compared to what he was in the Cowboys. Should get some opportunities and do fairly well at 313k. I'd expect him to be priced somewhere in the 400s, about 6 to 8 rounds in the season. So a little bit of upside there, and you can move him on to a centre gun a little bit later. If he happens to get a lot of ball going his way and score a bunch of tries, he might be able to sneak up into the 500s. Given the fact he's had a decent run of things across his time at the Cowboys, he has a fairly decent base, which is cool. He's priced at 25 now, and you can see just a bunch of scores in the 20s when nothing really happens. So I think he has a chance to score somewhere in the mid 30s, which would be cool. Mitch Moses, I think will score pretty similar. Same with Brown. They're both going to have to step up if the Eels are going to go really well. Junior Paulo, Lane, Madison, Brown. Madison and Brown, I think, are really cool options. Paulo could do alright, but he has already had big minutes in the past. Someone like Oregon Kafusi is a very interesting one for me as well. Another one of these guys is in your forward pack, just under 300k. Who if he gets some decent minutes, could do well. But how much of this role that he played last year, how much of that changes, and probably not a lot. So I think he has a little too many question marks just to be able to put into your squad at this stage. You got Will Smith as the utility. Isaiah Papali, I think, will be someone that gets a few more minutes, a few more minutes than Kafusi through the middle, and you got Hipgrave as well, who can fill in on an edge or play through the middle also. So interesting options there, but I'm gonna pass on those guys in the Eels. Warriors, there wasn't too much to think about. We've got Aiken in there. The backline was pretty much what we thought it would be. Chanel comes back, didn't play in the trials, but I think is probably 5 to 10 points undervalued. Should get the goal kicking back as well. Our forwards is where the interesting one sits. And Bailey Sirenen gets his spot. And I think what you're going to see from him is similar to what he did last year. Oh, Bailey Simonson, sorry. Sirenen. Here he is, 440k. So he came in pretty cheap for the Bunnies last year. I brought him into my side and he got his chance, but didn't set the house on fire. Had a nice couple of 51s there through the back end, but has a bunch of scores in the 20s. And I wouldn't expect him to play 80 minutes in here. And you can expect some scores in the mid to late 20s, early 30s. And what that will do is see him either lose money or keep him around the same. So I don't think he's a great option. Katoa, also don't expect to play the 80, given the fact that he's been injured. Tohu Harris, I'd expect to play big minutes, and then the other guys switching through those edge roles, and then the forwards with Vanua Blake being a bigger minute player, Tanua Brown closer to a 40-minute player. And so they've gone for all the big guys on the bench there, and Tavanga could spell Wade Egan, possibly, if it's needed, but I'd expect Wade Egan to play close to 80 minutes in this team. So Murdoch Masilla on the bench, I don't see him being able to average closer to 40, which he needs to make money, and Armour off the bench, I'd expect somewhere in the 30-minute range, and at 360k, I don't think it's worth it. Moving on to the Titans, we have Brimson, who's going to be a great option. Herbert in the centres there. I'd see Fogarty's going to be kicking goals, so Herbert's not going to be a great option, I don't think, especially with some other options in the centres, but dual position as well, and should do well. Should do well enough to make a little bit of money, but how much, I don't think he's going to be great there. Fogarty, I think, will be a keeper coming into the season. Then we look at someone like Mitch Rain. I think there's a chance that he plays close to 80 minutes. Peachy could spell him, so it could be like a 65 to 70. So could Aaron Clark, and that's kind of what his role is. So I don't expect Rain to be a perfect option, given the fact that he probably won't play the 80 minutes. Wallace should make a little bit of money. Looked a lot better, but that's just if he's fully fit. Then I think he could make a little bit of money, but he's not a great option in that mid-range. Fodawaker could end up being a keeper. It's going to be Fafita and Farmasuli. So let's have a little talk about Farmasuli. You've got Sam Lasone and Jamin Jolliffe, who are going to be covering for Wallace and Fodawaker. You've got Aaron Clark, who will come on for Rain. I think this is really cool for Tino. I think I'm expecting still somewhere between that 50 and 60 in minutes, and I think that will be enough for him to average closer to 50. He's someone that's a little bit more attacking and with a certain role in the team. I think he's going to have a nice work rate. Peachy's going to roam a little bit, and I think he can come on for any of the forwards at any time. So it'd be very interesting to see what happens in the first round. All right, let's move on to Roosters and the Eagles. I say, guys, please hit that like button if you haven't yet, and subscribe so you can get my updates throughout the season. Roosters, we've got Teddy. He's going to be the top wing fullback for your squad. The rest of the back line you don't want to talk about too much. Not really fantasy relevant. Lockie Lamb has earned the spot. And you look at the interchange there, you've got Adam Kieran, who could come on and spell for Jake Friend with what's his name? Verrills out for the first round. You got Victor Radley, who's going to come in and take this 13 role, which puts Isaac Liu either into the starting forward role or onto the bench, and that leaves someone like Daniel Fafita and Kieran, I think, are going to be out to the team pretty quickly. Even Butcher might lose his spot when you've got Radley coming back. Tupanua should do well on an edge. Crichton will also do really well. I think he's a pretty much a must-have given his dual position, and he's going to score really well this year. Other than that, not too much to talk about in the Roosters. We move on to the Eagles, and Dylan Walker moves into the number 1 role. So this one's really interesting, and I think he's going to get the dual position now. Actually can't. He's got half and centre. Whoops. So he's already has dual position. So let's have a look back to see if there's any games of him playing fullback. And you have to go all the way back to a 54 minutes for 8, which is beautiful. And then the rest, apart from 80 minutes for 25, lots in the centres, and the rest at 5'8". So someone that's been carrying a bunch of injuries recently and can score well if he gets the chance, but is this the start of them going, okay, Tommy Chob, when he comes back, he might have to move into the centres. It could be safer for his body. I know Bloke in a Bar's been talking about it a little bit. Just need to get him out on the field, and rather than putting Morgan Harper in it at fullback, they might be trying to get Walker some extra time in the fullback role, and you would expect him to score a bit better in fullback than he would at centre or 5'8". He's owned by 6.5%, so there's a bunch of people that will think this as well. At 317k, I don't think you're going to lose out by bringing him in, but I don't know how much upside there is. Has an injury history. I think he might be able to average about 30, which doesn't put him too much undervalued. 34 maybe is 10 points, which is pretty good, but he's a risk for me. Happy for you to take that risk at half and centre. You could start him in the centres, which would be cool, but he is definitely a risk. Jason Saab hasn't scored well in the past, and I don't expect that to change anytime soon. I feel like he's someone that you can just watch, and if he goes well over the first game or two, you could bring him in, but not too much to think about there. Foreign, I think, might take a few points off Cherry Evans, but not too many. Josh Aloiai should play big minutes, along with Marty Tapau around that 48 minutes that he usually plays. Lachlan Croker is a really interesting one. We actually have a look on the bench, and we don't have a Cade Cust. We have Tavita Funa as your utility. You have Andrew Davey, who's going to come on the bench, which is annoying for those who are interested in picking him up, with Gusefsky on the starting side, Morgan Boyle and Paseka on the bench. So all middle forwards and a utility. So I think Croker's actually going to play pretty big minutes, and he's going to need big minutes to score well. He hasn't been someone over his career that has done exceptionally well, playing big minutes in the hooking role. And you can see his stints last year. These were all off the bench in that hooking role. And price at 23, he will make some money. 77 minutes for 31, 80 minutes at 5/8 for 29, and the rest a bunch of interchange games. So if he's going to get big minutes, I think he should be able to make at least 10 points up. And he could be someone that you could play on your interchange bench as one of your 4. And now he's got the half and the hooker dual. I think that's a really cool option, and he's going to be a really cool option for your side. But that PPM of 0.44 is nothing to be excited about. He is owned by 1.6% at the moment, so there's a little bit of a pod, but I think he doesn't really have any downside if he's starting at 9. He's going to be making a lot of tackles and should do pretty well, so he's definitely someone that I'm thinking about bringing him to my side at this stage. Gusefsky, we'll touch on him again. At 288k in a starting role, he's just been someone who has been a victim of his own utility value. And you can see he's got games all different places last year. I don't even know what this game of 61 minutes is for 9. I don't know if that's a typo or not, but anyway. Bunch of games in the teens, coming off the interchange. He's got 76 minutes for 19. Really interesting. Yeah, that's come on. That one's come into the centers because he's had 6 tackles, 146 meters. But he's not someone that's really scored well in the past. He has an 80 minutes with a try for 45 points. 61 minutes, 2 tries for 49, 36 and 80 minutes. Will he get 80 minutes? I don't think he will. I think Davey will come on for him. So he's someone that could average closer to 30, but again, I don't think he's really a great option. Doesn't have any dual position, and there's a chance that he could switch with Davey at any point in time. So not a great option for me. Trebojevic going to do his thing. I think Sirenen's going to have a big year, but I don't think he has too much upside. I think Davey, you have to put a line through him at this stage. He'll only get sort of 30 to 40 minutes is my guess. Same with Paseka. He's a slightly interesting option, but I think he has to play big minutes to do well. Got someone like Schuster on the reserves in 18th man, so someone that I'm tempted to just hold on my squad as a red dot for round 1. Probably the only, and definitely the only red dot in my side, but he's so talented, and Foreign is someone that is very, let's say, paper at the moment. He did get to play a decent amount of games last year, but if he's someone that could get injured pretty quick, and Schuster comes straight into the squad and scores well straight away for your squad. So he's someone who's interesting to have on the bench, on your bench. Move to Panthers and Cowboys. Momorowski's going to be your interesting one here. Momorowski and Staines get their chance. If Momorowski plays well, he's obviously going to score well for your side, and he should keep his spot over someone like Naden, who's got a ban from the club for 4 weeks. So he's a really good option, I think. I think he's probably 10 points undervalued at this stage, and if you like him as a player, there's the upside there. He's someone that I'm tempted to bring into my squad at this stage. Crichton, I don't see the upside. I think he has to score a lot of tries again and improve as a player coming out of trouble to get those extra tackle busts and run meters for him to do well. I think he's going to take the next level, the next step. Probably a couple of points undervalued, but pretty well a keeper in those wing fullbacks. Luai and Cleary, I see both doing really well this year, hitting their average or just above. Cleary probably just under, but still a really good captaincy option. Leota gets that starting 8 spot. Eisenhuth didn't get it, which a few people were talking about. But we'll talk about their bench. Capewell gets the starting role, and I think what's going to happen here is Capewell, Martin, Kikau are all going to get somewhere between 50 to 60 minutes. Tyrone May, I don't expect a lot of minutes out of him, maybe closer to 20. Leniu somewhere in the 30s, and Eisenhuth maybe around the 40 mark. So in a side where Leota, Fisher-Harris, Kikau and Capewell and Yo aren't going to play 80 minutes, I see a decent amount of minutes for these bench players. And I see Leniu as having a good opportunity to score well. He has a nice PPM. Capewell is going to be really interesting. If he gets 60 minutes, I see him just undervalued. If he gets 80 minutes, then he's about 15 points undervalued. Really, really good player when he gets the chance. So it's very hard to start with these guys. I'd want to see how they play over the first few rounds, and if you've got a mid-ranger that's underperforming, you could trade him out for someone like Capewell. Moving on to the Cowboys side, Drinkwater gets the number 1 position. Holmes is on the bench. This could be cool if some point in the year Holmes gets a chance at number 1 and he doesn't score as well on the wing. Isar Masters and Hamiso get the center spot, which is really cool. Masters is priced just a little bit high for me. I think he should score a lot better this year than what he did last year. He was dealing with a few things off the field, and he looked pretty electric in both the both trial games he played for in the All-Stars, and then the first one for the Cowboys off the bench. So yeah, I think they're both slightly decent options, but in the mid 300s, Cowboys aren't tipped to do really well, unfortunately, for my squad. But I'd see them as wait and sees. Coming up against the Panthers side, they should get beat in the first round, but Michael Morgan playing in the 6th role, I don't think that really does much to his scoring. I think he's going to do pretty well, but him staying on the park is going to be really important for this side. Robson has Granville on the bench. Mitch Dunn, I think, is an interesting option. He's probably close to 10 points undervalued, but I don't see much more there. The interchange is really interesting. We've got Ruben Cotter in the 19 jersey. You got Bird that was named as 17 and has been subbed out for Cotter. Cotter played that roving 13 role in the trial match, and I expect him to come on and play that role for Taumalolo, with Maguire coming through the middle with Jensen. So there's a fair few minutes for him there. I'd probably expect Taumalolo to be 55 to 60 minutes. Maguire will probably come on and play pretty big minutes off the bench. McLean's coming off an injury. Molo, you expect them somewhere between the 40 and 50 minutes. Dunn's probably going to get 80. Hess should probably get close to 80, and then they're going to split through the middle. Cotter off the bench for about 30 with Taumalolo. Granville off from about 20, and Jensen there. I think he's just slightly overpriced, just slightly too much overpriced to bring him in as a good option. But that's about all with the Cowboys. All right, we're almost there. Last couple of games. Raiders, Sebastian Kris has got the opportunity, but he'll be out of the side with Croker coming back. Just should be out for the 1 week. White and Williams, nothing too much to talk about. Hodgson gets his spot. Havili's on the bench, and there's a chance he takes some minutes off Hodgson, but there's also a good chance he plays the 80 minutes. Hudson Young's going to be a decent option off the bench, but they've gone for 4 middle forwards on their interchange, which should take a few minutes away from someone like Tarpany. Hudson Young may not play the 80. You've got Dynamis Louis and Papali there who play decent minutes, but a bit worried about them, their pack, given the fact they've got 4 of those guys on the bench. Moving on to the Tigers, Dane Laurie gets his chance. Moses Mbai goes into the 6th position. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when Adam Dewey comes back. Will Moses Mbai slot into the 14 role? They've currently got Tommy Talau there in the 14 role, so I'd expect Mbai to probably move to that position if Laurie plays well. So I see Laurie as pretty close to a must-have. Should be able to score pretty well in that 1 position and hopefully cement his spot if he has a good first game, especially against a Raiders team who will be looking to target him in defence, especially and with their kicks. Nofaluma should be close to a gun in the wing fullbacks again. James Roberts is a decent option if he keeps his if he's able to stay on the park long term. I think he should score well and is about 10 points undervalued as well. Asu Kepau, I think with him it's an issue, the fact that Tommy Talau could come straight onto that wing spot. Brooks should be a decent option. I think he's close to 10 points undervalued. Mbai's not going to be kicking too much. Brooks should be kicking goals, especially in this first round, so I think he should score well. But against a Raiders side, and they have a couple of tough games to start, and then rounds 3 to 5 will be a lot easier. Someone asked me that question, and if you're bringing in Brooks, you're looking to pick him up for the majority of the season and hoping he can move into a keeper status somewhere averaging in the 50s. Moving to the forwards, and a really interesting one is Jacob Little, and he doesn't have Simpkin on the bench. He's not even in the top 21, which makes Little an awesome option. You just have to have him in your side as a must-have. Offhand Gowie, he comes in there. You've got 3 middle forwards on the bench. So it's Tarmau and Offhand Gowie, somewhere in the 40s I'm expecting. Leilua and Garner, big minutes, and hopefully Twal, 60-plus minutes. So he's someone that I'm interested in having in my side, and I'm just going to see how his amount of money fits in the squad at this stage. But he's someone that I think is going to be a good option with this type of interchange. It'll be interesting to see how many minutes Talau plays. But yeah, Cheekham misses out, unfortunately. And our last one. So the Dragons and the Sharks round out the week. Jack Bird gets his spot. Ramsey gets his spot. Ravalawa gets the spot on the wing. Adam Klugen comes in for 1 week. Hunt's an okay option with dual position. Laurie gets the starting 8 spot. Kerr holds his spot on an edge. And Fuimaano gets a spot at 13. So he's a very interesting one. He spent a lot more time on the edge in his previous years when he's come on. But again, someone with that utility value, priced at 25 with a 1.4% ownership. So you can cement it. He spent a lot of his time in the second row. And he scores fairly decent when he gets a spot in the second row. And it'd be really interesting to see how he's going to go in the middle. And is this something that he's going to get regularly? He's now got dual position at 339. Let's have a look at the team that they're dealing with at the moment. We've got Farmasuli, Merrin, Alvaro on the bench with Williami as their utility. So I see some pretty big minutes for someone like Fuimaano and probably turns into a decent option as someone that can cover on the edge too, especially with someone like Davey out. You know, guys will be starting with Ricky or maybe having him on the bench with another gun edge there. And I see Fuimaano as having a decent chance of keeping that spot if he plays well. You look at their bench and Ford completely misses out on the squad. And he's someone that's an edge and should cover someone like Kerr. With Laurie moving to a front row forward spot, really interesting signs for someone like Fuimaano, and it's probably a decent option at this stage. Farmasuli and Alvaro, so we've got a utility on the bench, which is great. You'd expect McCulloch to play 80 minutes, so I think he's going to be a great option, averaging closer to 60. There's going to be minutes to be split. So you've got Laurie and Vaughan, who will play their decent 50-ish minutes. Sims should play close to 80. Fulmano, I wouldn't expect to play 80, somewhere in the 50s. Kirk could play 80, but might not be able to. So I see some big minutes for Alvaro and Farmasuli. So I'd be picking probably one of them in my side. Not sure who's going to be at the moment, but both are going to be decent options in your team. And our last team, guys, Sharks. So we got Will Kennedy, who's in there. It's probably going to be a half-decent option, probably slightly undervalued. The rest of the guys, Moylan, if you want to put him in your team, do so, but I'm not interested personally. Townsend should be great for the first 5 to 7 rounds. Probably about 10 points undervalued. Connor Tracy will probably... Where's he going to play? He could just come in and roam again. If he's there for injuries, Dugan comes off a little bit injured. Hamanueli, Blake Brayley should probably be playing close to 80 minutes. Woods, Nakora, Graham, Rudolph. Nothing really interesting with those guys. Tolman, Williams, and Magoulias gets a chance on the interchange bench. So he's someone that does score well when he gets good minutes, but I doubt he's going to get that here. Tolman and Williams should play decent minutes, which will take a bunch of these minutes from the forwards in here. But that's pretty much it, guys. That's where we're at. I hope teams lists were kind to you, as I said, and good luck making your sides. If you have any questions about your team, please message me in the comments below or join the Discord group, and that would be really helpful, especially on game day. We'll be able to post some content in there and really help guys nice and fast when you needed that hour before kickoff. And we're making that people's team, so a good chance I'm going to go live tomorrow night on YouTube and hopefully be able to help us out. Hopefully we can get you guys on there helping us make that people's team. But hope you enjoyed that, guys, and we'll see you in the next few videos when we can reveal my team tomorrow. Hope you like it. See you guys. Bye.